Pardon?
He has his advertising. It's his private. He had all these other things. And you were on the list.
Just so we can hear you, Linda, I'm going to move this microphone closer to you.
I don't probably do a lot of talking. So.
Well, you're talking now. If you're recording,
okay, so Ivan, go ahead and play the video.
So, I will dispense with my usually long and learned introductions. Get right into it. How Not to Die. That has got to be the best title for a book ever, and might explain why this otherwise learned volume has shot immediately to the top of all the bestseller lists and stayed there for a long, long time. My thought about How Not to Die is, I'm in, Dr. Greger. Sign me up. Come on out here. He has the secret. There is a drug. There is a drug, and I'm going to let you tell them what it is.
I'll tell.
Yep.
Allow me to begin on a personal note. This is a picture of me taken around the time that my grandmother was diagnosed with end-stage heart disease and sent home to die. She already had so many bypass surgeries, it basically ran out of plumbing at some point. Confined to a wheelchair, crushing chest pain, her life was over at age 65. Then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers, and what happened next is detailed in Pritikin's biography. My grandma was one of the death's door people. Frances Greger, my grandmother, arrived in a wheelchair. Mrs. Greger had heart disease, angina, claudication. Her condition so bad she could no longer walk without great pain in her chest and legs. Within 3 weeks, though, she was not only out of a wheelchair, she was walking 10 miles a day. This is a picture of my grandma at her grandson's wedding, 15 years after the doctors had abandoned her to die. She was given a medical death sentence at age 65, and thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet till age 96 to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. That's why I went into medicine. Now, years later, when Dr. Dean Ornish published his landmark lifestyle heart trial, proving with something called quantitative angiography that indeed heart disease could be reversed, arteries opened up without drugs, without surgery, and just a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors in the majority of people, I assumed this was going to be the game changer. I mean, I'd seen it with my own eyes, my whole family had, but here it was in black and white, published in some of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, yet nothing happened. So wait a second. If effectively the cure to our #1 killer could effectively get lost down some rabbit hole and ignored, what else might there be in the medical literature that could help my patients but just didn't have a corporate budget driving its promotion? Well, I made it my life's mission to find out. For those of you unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world, so busy folks like you don't have to. I then compile all the most interesting, most groundbreaking, the most practical findings to new videos and articles I upload every day to my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There's no ads, no corporate sponsorship, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother. New videos and articles every day on the latest in evidence-based nutrition. What a concept. So where did Pritikin get his evidence from? Well, you know, a network of missionary hospitals set up throughout sub-Saharan Africa uncovered what may be one of our greatest medical discoveries, as noted by one of our greatest medical figures of the 20th century, Dr. Dennis Burkitt, the fact that many of our major and most common diseases were universally rare there, like heart disease. For example, in the African population of Uganda, coronary heart disease almost non-existent. Wait a second. Number one killer, almost non-existent. What were they eating? Well, they're eating lots of vegetables and grains and greens, and their protein almost exclusively from plant sources. And they had the cholesterol levels to prove it, very similar to what one sees in kind of modern day plant eaters. That's about 3.7 in Canadian units. So wait a second, maybe they were just dying early from something else and never lived long enough to get a heart attack. No, here's age-matched heart attack rates in Uganda versus St. Louis. Out of 632 autopsies in Uganda, only one myocardial infarction. Out of 632 age and gender matched autopsies in Missouri, 136 myocardial infarctions, more than 100 times the rate of our leading killer. In fact, they were so blown away, they went back, did another 800 autopsies in Uganda, still just at one small healed infarct, meaning it wasn't even the cause of death. Out of 1,427 patients, less than 1 in 1,000. Whereas here, heart disease is an epidemic. Atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, is a disease that begins in childhood by age 10. Nearly all kids raised on the North American diet already have what are called fatty streaks in their arteries, the first stage of the disease. And then these plaques can start forming in our 20s, get worse in our 30s, and then start killing us off. So if there is anyone here today, older than age 10, then the question is not whether or not to eat healthy to prevent heart disease, it's whether or not you want to reverse the heart disease that you likely already have. Is that even possible? When researchers took people with heart disease, put them on the kind of plant-based diet followed by populations that did not get heart disease, their hope was that maybe we can slow it down, maybe even stop it. But instead, something miraculous happened. The disease started to reverse. As soon as people stopped eating artery-clogging diets, their bodies were able to dissolve some of that plaque away, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery, suggesting their bodies wanted to be healthy all along, but were just never given the chance. This remarkable improvement in blood flow on the left here to the heart muscle itself was after just 3 weeks eating healthy. This is nothing new. We've known about this for decades. American Heart Journal, 1977, cases like Mr. FW here. Heart disease so bad, couldn't even make it to the mailbox. Started eating healthier. A few months later, he was climbing mountains, no pain. Now, there are these fancy new classes of anti-angina drugs on the market. It costs thousands of dollars a year, but at the highest dose may be able to extend exercise duration as long as 33.5 seconds. Does not look like those choosing the drug route are going to be climbing mountains anytime soon. See, plant-based diets aren't just safer and cheaper, but can work better because you're treating the actual cause of the disease. Right? It's only one diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, this plant-based diet. If that's all a plant-based diet can do, reverse the #1 killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be helpful in preventing, arresting, or reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and hypertension would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. Most deaths in the United States are preventable and related to nutrition. According to the Global Burden of Disease Study, the largest study of risk factors ever published, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the #1 cause of death in the United States and the #1 cause of disability is our diet. Now bumping tobacco smoking to #2. Smoking now only kills 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills hundreds of thousands more. What about Canada? The #1 killer of Canadians is the Canadian diet. And again, tobacco got bumped to #2. So, of course, nutrition is the #1 thing doctors learn in medical school, right? I mean, the #1 thing your doctor talks to you about, right? Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine yourself a smoker back in the 1950s. The 1950s, the average per capita cigarette consumption, 4,000 cigarettes a year, meaning the average person walking around smoked half pack a day. The media was telling you to smoke, famous athletes agreed, even Santa Claus wanted you to smoke. I mean, look, you want to keep fit, stay slender, so you make sure to smoke and eat lots of hot dogs to stay trim, and eat lots of sugar to stay slim and trim. A lot better than that apple there. I mean, sheesh, right? Although apples do connote goodness and freshness, reads one internal tobacco industry memo, which brings up many possibilities for a youth-oriented cigarette. They wanted to make apple-flavored cigarettes for kids. For digestion's sake, you smoke. I mean, no curative powers claimed by Philip Morris, but better be safe than sorry and smoke. Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. No woman ever says no, they're so round, so firm, so fully packed. After all, John Wayne smoked them until he got lung cancer and died. You know, back then, even the paleo folks were smoking, and so were the doctors. Now, this is not to say there wasn't controversy within the medical profession. Sure, you know, many doctors smoke Camels, but others preferred Luckies. There was a little disagreement there. The leader of the U.S. Senate agreed. Who wouldn't want to give their throat a vacation? Not a single case of throat irritation. How could there be when cigarettes are just as pure as the water you drink? Maybe over in Flint, Michigan. But don't worry. If you do get irritated, your doctor can write you a prescription for cigarettes. This is an ad in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So when mainstream medicine is saying that smoking on balance is actually good for you, when the American Medical Association is saying that, where could you turn back then if you just wanted the facts, right? What's the new data advanced by science? She was too tired for fun, and then she smoked a Camel. Babe Ruth spoke of proof positive medical science, that is, when he still could speak, before he died of throat cancer. Now, by some miracle back then, there was a smokingfacts.org website that could deliver the science directly, bypassing commercially corruptible institutional filters. You would have become aware of studies like this. This is an Adventist study out of California, published in 1958, showing that smokers had at least 90% more lung cancer risk than non-smokers. Non-smokers, 90% less lung cancer risk than smokers, right? But this wasn't the first. When famed surgeon Michael DeBakey was asked by his studies back in the 30s, linking lung cancer and smoking were simply ignored, he had to remind people what it was like back then. We were a smoking society. It was in the movies. It was everywhere. Medical meetings were one heavy haze of smoke. Smoking was, in a word, normal. So, back to our little thought experiment. If you're a smoker in the 50s in the know, what do? I mean, with access to the science, you realize the best available balance of evidence suggests your smoking habits are not so good for you. So do you change, or do you wait? If you wait until your doctor tells you between puffs to quit, you could have cancer. But then if you wait until the powers that be officially recognize it, like the Surgeon General did in the subsequent decade, you could be dead by then. It took more than 7,000 studies and the deaths of countless smokers before the first Surgeon General's report came out against smoking. Right? You think maybe after the first 6,000 studies, it could have given people a little heads up or something? Powerful industry, right? Maybe we should have stopped smoking after the 700th study like this. As a smoker in the 50s, on one hand, you had all of society, the government, the medical profession itself telling you to smoke. And on the other hand, all you had was the science. If you're even aware of studies like this. Let's fast forward 55 years. You know, there's a new Adventist study out of California warning Americans about something else they may be putting in their mouth. Of course, it's not just one study. Recent compilation of all the best evidence to date suggests that mortality from all causes put together, many of our most dreaded diseases, cancer, stroke, diabetes, etc., significantly lower among those eating more plant-based diets. Animal products and processed foods may cause up to 14 million deaths every year. So, instead of a smoker in the 50s, right, imagine you or someone you know going along with America's eating habits today. You realize the best available balance of evidence suggests your eating habits not so good for you. So do you change or do you wait? If you wait until your doctor tells you between bites to change, it could be too late. In fact, even after the Surgeon General's report came out, the medical community still dragged their feet. The doctor's always the last on board. Even the AMA actually went on record refusing to endorse the Surgeon General's report. Why? Could it have been they just got a $10 million check from the tobacco industry? Maybe. Okay, so we know why the tobacco industry is sucking up, the AMA is sucking up to the tobacco industry. But why weren't more individual doctors speaking out? Well, there were a few ahead of their time, speaking up against industries killing millions, but why not more? Maybe it's because the majority of physicians themselves smoke cigarettes. Just like the majority of physicians today continue to eat foods that are contributing to our epidemic of dietary diseases. What was the AMA's rallying cry back then? Everything in moderation. Extensive scientific studies proven smoking in moderation, oh, that's fine. Sound familiar? The food industry uses the same tobacco industry tactics, twisting the science, misinformation. The same scientists for hire paid to downplay the risks of cigarette smoke and toxic chemicals are the same paid for by the National Confectioners Association to downplay the risks of candy, and the same paid by the meat industry to downplay the risks of meat. 14 million people dead. Animal products and processed foods. Plant-based nutrition can be considered kind of the modern-day equivalent of stopping smoking. But how many more people have to die, though, before our government say, don't wait for open-heart surgery, to start eating healthier as well? Until the system changes, we need to take personal responsibility for our own health, for our family's health. We can't wait until society catches up to the science again, because it's a matter of life and death. You know, last year, Dr. Williams became the president of the American College of Cardiology. He was asked in an interview why he himself follows the same diet he recommends to all his patients, his plant-based diet. I don't mind dying, Dr. Williams replied. I just don't want it to be my own fault. Thank you so much.
So now we have this chance to ask Dr. Greger questions, and I don't have particularly any in mind.
Do you all have any questions? Okay, good. Shout them out.
He really stresses heart disease, but is he also saying that other diseases like
liver disease or,
See,
and other diseases are affected by our food as well, and especially old age now.
Yes, he does. I don't know if anybody listened to his longer version of this, but he goes into a lot more of the chronic diseases, and liver disease came up too. And there's like nothing plant-based can't do, it seems like.
Kidney as well.
Yeah, but ask him. I want you to ask him. So hold on to that question. Okay, what else?
I think Linda sent us
Oh.
a link for the longer version.
Yes,
Okay, that's all I wanted.
it's on that little flyer.
Right, okay, great, thanks.
Oh, okay. I should get my glasses. Hey, Sharon.
you can see.
What?
Yeah, you want to be able to see.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey. Sunglasses.
So how many ex-smokers in the room? Ex-smokers? Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
just curious about, I looked at his longer version and I'm curious about his recommendation not to even have I think non-fat milk products, and also egg whites are not okay too. So I just, I'm not familiar with the literature on that. So I just was curious about that.
I think that would be a great question to ask him, but you know, in fact, that was one of the ones I wanted to ask, because I know that comes up a lot in our classes, but I think it might be that the animal products are associated with cancers, and so the animal protein. So I think that would be why, but would you ask him that when he comes on?
Yes.
I think that would be awesome. Okay. Yes.
I was wondering if atherosclerosis can be reversed.
That's a good question for him, and he would say yes. So when he says that like Ornish had shown that by angiography. So people, he went into people back then and looked at their angiograms and saw a reversal. So I would ask if that's a great question. What else we got for him?
Was he talking, when he talks about the ability to reverse heart disease, is it mainly arterial? Oh, I'm sorry for this. We're gonna ignore it. Was it arterial or other kinds of like congestive heart failure or whatever?
Oh, I think again you should ask him, but I would say he's going to say yes, it's arterial, and then that ends up affecting your heart. So heart failure wouldn't be as prevalent because now your arteries work better.
But if it's due to heart valve weaknesses or something, that might be a different issue.
True. That's true. You're right. I think sometimes our valve issues are just even congenital, you know?
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Are they just going to come on?
I see. Oh,
Okay.
you and I know the same amount.
The same amount. Okay, good. Okay, let's think of some other questions for him. What else we got?
I just need to make sure I have the website that you were talking about, the long version.
Yeah, you know, Linda attached in several of her emails this week.
Oh, it's in the email. Okay,
it's in here, and you have to like scroll all the way down, and then she put this little flyer in, and there's a line that's like a pink color, and that's the longer one.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll tell you, I listened to that twice now while I was driving or walking, and I was sorry I hadn't seen the slides, because sometimes like everybody laughs and like I don't know why they're laughing. So I think the slides help.
Robert said he watched it and never wants to eat chicken again.
I know, you're right. In fact, I told several of my mom's friends, yes, yeah, several of my mom's friends have trouble with UTIs, like frequent UTIs, and one of them doesn't eat chicken, but one does sometimes. So we were telling them that. You're absolutely right. And he made it sound like you just rub it all over the kitchen and it jumps into you. Okay, more questions. We got to keep him busy. I'm not sure how long he expands, you know, once he answers the question. Anything?
I have a question about fish. Is fish okay? They say plant-based, but
I think he's going to say no, but will you ask him?
oh.
Yeah.
Could ask him what's for dinner.
I would love that. Yes, that's good. Okay, John's going to ask him what's for dinner. It's not me.
Where is he? Where's he from?
He lives up north, like in the Seattle area. Some of his podcasts, or some of his little videos, he films like in his kitchen. He like moved in some place that's got this gorgeous view and this big fancy kitchen, and he cooks in his kitchen. And I've tried some of his recipes; they're good.
But he's in our time zone.
Yeah. Well, his home is.
Okay.
I don't know where he is today.
Right.
What maybe it could be. And you know, I was so impressed with us because we're on his calendar today, like on his website. He's got a calendar of all his little things, and we're on it. Yeah. A little private event.
I'm particularly interested in whether kidney disease can be reversed in any way.
Okay.
But it's the kidney disease that I think is easy.
Okay, I think both are good. I mean, we want to reverse anything, right? So we don't want to get it.
But there's a distinction between reversing it and minimizing it, or forestalling it so that it's not progressing.
Right.
And obviously, as proactive as you can be, at least hopefully you're doing that. Whether you're actually making it go away, you don't know. But if you're living with it longer because you basically stop it from progressing, that's still a win.
Yeah, I'm not on plant-based, fully plant-based diet at all, though. And I am dying from the kidney disease.
Well, that's a good question for him then. You might be plant-based when you walk out of here.
I think I am. I had to give up the dairy, but I will.
Well, and in the long one, he talks about moderation and what a farce kind of moderation is. And he made the example of if you hit your knee like on the coffee table every day, 3 times a day, like we would eat 3 times a day, and then you have pain, and you go to the doctor and he gives you pain meds, but you're still hitting your knee on the table every day. It's not doing any good. And then you could do moderation by only hitting your knee with something, you know, smaller that doesn't hurt as bad, but it's still going to hurt it. So I don't know. He had some good examples, I thought.
Oh, here he is.
Oh. Oh, there he is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Greger.
Hi.
Hello, hello. How's
Hi.
everybody doing?
Well,
good. I think we're all
Excellent.
doing good. We're glad to see you. I love your treadmill.
Well is what we want for a wellness group.
Well, that is true. That is true. So we're the cardiovascular wellness program. We are housed out of Sacramento State University. And we have a group of people here and also people online who have we just watched the little 20-minute clip you have, and a lot of us have watched the longer one. And we have some questions for you if you're ready for us.
Whip them out.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go first?
Well, what? Map doesn't go all that way, so.
Okay. All right. So which one should I ask first?
Are other diseases affected by the plant-based diet, and particularly liver, kidney disease, and forms of dementia?
Okay, so Dr. Greger, I don't think you can hear the question, so I'm going to repeat. So
Please.
One, are plant-based diets helpful for other diseases besides cardiovascular disease, like kidney disease, liver disease, and dementia?
Yes, indeed, they are. And the reason is because a heart healthy diet, and the reason a heart healthy diet is a brain healthy diet, is a liver healthy diet, is a kidney healthy diet, is because all our organ systems need to have good blood flow to bring oxygen, nutrients, get rid of waste products. So, of course, a diet that's going to open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, improving blood flow is going to help so many different organ systems. And you can actually reverse chronic kidney disease with a healthy plant-based diet. Those who eat plant-based long-term have 2 to 3 times lower rates of dementia. as they get older. Can significantly cut down on fatty liver disease, the number one cause of liver failure in the U.S. these days. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems almost kind of too good to be true, kind of like a panacea. It works for so many different things. But once you realize the mechanism, oh, I see, we're talking about blood flow. So getting blood flow to our organs, that's a good thing across the board. And same thing with the fact that many of our diseases have an inflammatory component. So, of course, an anti-inflammatory diet can have such benefits kind of across the board. Same thing with the microbiome. We now understand that the good bugs in our gut are not just important for intestinal health, but for our health throughout our bodies. And so, of course, a diet that's going to feed them with fiber and prebiotics like resistant starch is going to be beneficial for so many different effects. And so those are some of the ways that a healthy diet can affect so many organ systems at the same time in a positive direction.
Okay, thank you. So I think you kind of answered this, but I don't know if you can expand it all, because the question was, can you actually reverse chronic kidney disease? Like if someone's been diagnosed and they say, this is it for you, can a plant-based diet reverse that?
You can reverse chronic kidney disease up to a point. Once you're on dialysis, once your kidneys stop working completely, then you can certainly improve your chances of survival, but you cannot actually reverse that damage once your kidneys become too scarred up. But after being first diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, yes, indeed, you can improve your GFR and take you out of the range in which you would no longer be defined as having chronic kidney disease at all.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the question is, can atherosclerosis be reversed?
Atherosclerosis can be reversed, shown in the Lifestyle Heart Trial. Dr. Dean Ornish, summer of 1990, published a randomized controlled trial showing that with a plant-based diet and lifestyle program, he could open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, reversing atherosclerotic heart disease, the number one killer of men and women. It's something we've known about for decades, yet hundreds of thousands of people continue to die every year from this preventable, arrestable, and reversible condition.
Okay, thank you. And the question has come up, isn't fish okay?
Well, it depends compared to what. So foods aren't necessarily good or bad as they are better or worse. So if you say something like, are eggs good for you? Well, compared to breakfast sausage, yes. Compared to oatmeal, not even close. Same thing with, is tuna fish good for you? Well, compared to a bologna sandwich, yes. But compared to something like a hummus wrap, no. The big problem with fish these days is because of we've kind of so polluted our world. Our oceans are kind of humanity's sewers. All the mercury spewed from all the coal plants in China eventually settles into the aquatic food chain, builds up the food, the kind of food pyramid, and such that the highest levels of many of the toxic pollutants like PCBs and dioxins and toxic heavy metals like mercury, the highest levels of these toxins are found in seafood. Now you can eat smaller fish, shorter-lived fish, which grow up to have lower levels of contaminants. If you had a time machine, go back for the Industrial Revolution, that could help. But now there really are healthier sources of protein, particularly legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, than fish. Though fish is still better than some other things like processed meat.
Okay. And then what about non-fat dairy and egg whites in particular? It seems
okay.
Like
Well, yeah. So certainly that's avoiding some of the worst components. So when it comes to dairy, you're avoiding the saturated butterfat, and when it comes to eggs, you're avoiding the dietary cholesterol found concentrated in the yolk. And so those would certainly be better choices. But again, better still would be something like soy milk would be preferable to even low-fat dairy milk. In terms of in terms of egg whites, healthier, you could like a scrambled tofu kind of thing, or now there's something called Just Egg was made out of mung bean protein, which would be healthier, but the yolks are the worst, and the saturated butterfat is the worst, and so that would definitely be a step in the right direction.
So it's not that they're, or is it that they're bad, or just that there's better choices that have healthful benefits?
Well, I mean, that's with everything, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's like, is lard bad? Well, yeah, but it's better than Crisco. It's better than hydrogenated, vegetable oil. But that's not saying much. It's like, it's better to get stabbed than shot, but I'd rather have neither.
Yeah, but is there something in the actual non-fat? Is there something in the dairy products that
So
we're concerned?
Yeah, we're concerned about the galactose, and so the reason why milk drinkers tend to live shorter lives than non-milk drinkers. Part of it may be the saturated butterfat, but part of it may be the galactose. That's how you actually age laboratory animals to do experiments on anti-aging treatments. You give them galactose, which is the breakdown product of lactose, the milk sugar. And it causes cataracts and causes, basically it mimics aging through all the organ systems. Now, we have an enzyme that actually detoxifies galactose. There's kind of a rare birth defect where you can't, and they suffer this kind of accelerated aging syndrome. But even in people with intact galactose detoxification, the concern is that drinking milk after infancy, which is longer than we're really kind of supposed to drink milk, right? Milk is for babies, kind of by definition. But drinking milk into adulthood, that extra galactose exposure may be why it's associated with increased mortality. And so it's not so much the milk fat as the milk sugar, although they both, I think, have concerning components.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Processed foods.
What about,
even if they're plant-based, are they okay?
oh, okay. So the question is, what about processed foods, even if they're plant-based?
Oh,
like
get
that Just
rid
Egg
of them.
stuff. Beyond Burger.
So again, it's the kind of thing, it's like, okay, well, it's better, but it's not the ideal, right? And so I see something like Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger as, stepping stones, the good kind of intermediate transition foods. So, not everyone goes, kale and quinoa overnight. They want the same kind of textures and tastes that they grew up with. And so it's easier. So it's better. Absolutely. It tends to have less saturated fat, no cholesterol, has a little fiber in it. And you can randomize people to, Beyond Meat versus meat and actually get significant benefits from eating the Beyond Meat, but you get even more benefits if you indeed switch them to a whole food source of protein like legumes. If you had them eating, bean burritos instead, they do even better. And so again, it's, not so bad, so much good or bad, but better or worse. The chief problem with these processed foods is the high sodium intake. So they can have just as much sodium as the kind of meat equivalent. And we really should try to cut down our sodium as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question from someone online. What are the best medical tests to have to set a baseline for your health that can be revisited to see if there's any reversal?
And so it kind of depends on your situation. But the only one recommended by the USPSTF, which is kind of the official kind of U.S. Preventive Services Task Force that determines, kind of preventive medicine, is getting one's cholesterol checked. And so we want to get cholesterol checked at age 20 or earlier and and even if it's fine, we want to get rechecked at least every 5 years to make sure. And the reason they're so concerned about that is because heart disease is the #1 killer of both men and women. So you want to make sure that your LDL cholesterol, so-called bad cholesterol, is under 70 for primary prevention, meaning you've never had a heart attack. And if you've already had a heart attack, you want to push it down even further down to kind of 30 to 50 range. And to even get it down to 70, you have to really eat a remarkably healthy diet. And so that's the primary reason why we encourage people to eat healthy and why we want to test our cholesterol and see how rapidly we can bring it down. Within 2 weeks, you can see the differences in diet. When you take drugs to lower cholesterol, it can take months, but within just 2 weeks. So you can, change your diet, get it retested, change your diet again, get it retested till you get it down to safe levels.
Okay, good. And John asks, what are you having for dinner?
Oh, I just got this batch in the mail of Hawaiian purple sweet potatoes. 'Tis the season. And this is one of my favorite times of the year where the date crops are coming in, the pomegranates are coming out, pomelos are coming out, and where I can get good purple sweet potatoes. I can't find them locally, but thankfully they're from, I believe, the Big Island in Hawaii, so they didn't suffer from the Maui fires. And so just got 20 pounds in the mail. Very excited. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to air fry them. First, you microwave them to kind of pre-cook them, and then air fry them to make them nice and crispy. And I coat them with rosemary and smoked paprika and garlic powder. And then dip them in a salt-free ketchup with some horseradish in there, maybe some hot sauce. So that it's going to be sweet potato fries. Is going to be the centerpiece of tonight's meal.
Oh, that sounds very good. Okay, thank you for that. Do you have recommendations for meat alternatives for protein intake for children, and should babies drink plant-based milk?
It's critically important for small children. They have such small stomach sizes that they need to have very nutrient, calorically dense foods. And so, yeah, for an adult, we want to have them eat a salad, but a little kid can't eat a salad because just eat a salad because it would fill up their stomach. They wouldn't get enough calories. They wouldn't get enough just food in for the day. And so that's why we want to really think about caloric density, something like, tofu or something, which is just packed with calories and protein. For their itty bitty little tummies. There's a great book called Nourish, co-authored by one of my favorite dietitians, Brenda Davis. Talks about raising children healthfully. And that's probably the best resource, the most recent resource I would send people towards.
Okay, excellent. Other questions out there in Zoom land? Okay.
Would you clarify the combination of grains and beans, or how to make a complete protein if you can't eat grains?
Okay, so the question is about making a complete protein, like by combining food like beans and grains, but what happens if you can't eat grains?
So the incomplete protein myth was a myth started in the 1970s. It's since been dispelled decades ago in the medical literature. All plant proteins are complete proteins in that they all have all the essential amino acids. And so as long as you're getting enough calories with whole plant foods, you shouldn't have to worry about protein. One does not have to eat grains, but the same nutritional profile that you'd expect in grains you could see in nuts, seeds, and legumes, right? Because they're all botanically seeds. Anything you put in the ground and you make a plant is a seed. So that can be a wheat berry or an oak root or a kidney bean or a sunflower seed. And so botanically they have kind of similar nutrient profiles because there's certain nutrients that are needed by a developing embryo. And so if you, for whatever reason, don't eat grains, there are so-called pseudo grains like quinoa, which have a similar nutrition profile, as well as eating lots of legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils.
Okay.
What about people that can't eat beans?
What about people who can't eat beans?
Well, then you need to eat more whole grains to get kind of similar. But I encourage people, well, I mean, it would be depending on why someone was having problems with beans, but I encourage people to, there's so many different kinds of beans out there, to keep experimenting to find one you can include in their diet, since they are the food group most associated with longevity, with living a longer life. In fact, the blue zones all center their diets around some kind of legume. So we want to make sure that we're eating legumes if we can at all possible.
Okay. Yes.
How do you lose belly fat on a plant-based diet?
Ooh, that's a good one. How do you lose belly fat on a plant-based diet?
I wrote an entire book called How Not to Diet on just that very question. But that is definitely the question, because it's that deep visceral fat that's most concerning, that deep belly fat. That's the kind of most villainous fat in terms of spewing out inflammation, etc. But thankfully, that's the first to lose. Our body's smart and gets rid of that first. And so there's a variety of things you can do to accelerate the loss of visceral body fat. And so go to your local public library and check out the book.
Okay, I think we might have that in our library here.
Even better.
We do. And I like that on your Daily Dozen app, you can do the 21 tweaks.
Oh, yeah. So,
I like that.
Yeah. So those are ways to accelerate the loss of body fat, regardless of what you eat the rest of the time. You can kind of switch the Daily Dozen over into weight loss mode, and you can incorporate some of those into your diet too.
Okay. So there's a question. There are many Vitamix machines on the market. What level should I buy to get the best results for the recipes in your books?
Well, yes, there's a lot of high-speed blenders. I don't know if any one is necessary, but they certainly are. If you want a smoothie that's actually smooth, a high-speed blender works much better than the kind of blenders we all grew up with. Of all the different time, there's like Blendtec, there's the Ninja. I do like the Vitamix, just because I think it blends better than any of the other ones. And I actually use it a lot. I use it to make sauces and make pesto. And so, yeah, if you can find a good, secondhand Vitamix, you can make some really smooth, creamy sauces.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question. Here we're in Sacramento. We've got lots of farmland and we have just great produce here. But when you go to the farmer's market, it's pretty expensive. So do you think we have to have organic?
Oh, and you have the Sacramento Co-op. I love that Co-op.
I know.
Oh my God, what a great place. Yeah. So, in How Not to Die, I talk about this modeling study that suggested that if half of Americans ate a single more serving of fruits or vegetables, how we would expect to prevent 20,000 cases of cancer every year. But because they're talking about conventional produce, pesticide-laden produce, that amount of additional pesticide exposure might cause 10 cancer cases a year. So overall, we would just prevent 19,990 cases of cancer. That gives you a sense of the tremendous benefits of eating produce versus the tiny bump in risk. And you say, well, wait a second, why accept any risk at all by choosing organic? Great, but we should never let concern over pesticides prevent us from stuffing our face with as many fruits and vegetables as possible.
Do you recommend a wash or anything for vegetables and fruit?
I do have a video talking about the different ways that you can reduce pesticide residues, but it really comes down to mostly a food safety issue of rinsing our fruits and vegetables under running water to primarily reduce the food safety risk from bacterial contamination.
Okay, all right. Other things?
How about sugar or sweetener alternatives?
Oh, what about sugar and sweetener alternatives?
Yeah. So ideally, if you want something sweet, you would eat a sweet potato or eat fruit. These are really the healthiest sweet things. In terms of alternatives, for something for like baking or something where you use like a dry granulated sugar, date sugar, which is actually not sugar, it's just dried pulverized dates. So it's actually a whole food. So they just take dates, dry them, and pulverize them into powder. So you actually get a lot of nutrition, and so you can use that in baking. Unfortunately, because it actually has fiber in it, it kind of gets kind of lumpy if you try to put it in coffee or tea or something. In which case, you could use date syrup But a lot of date syrup is so refined as to remove much of the nutrition. So you want to find a date syrup with at least 2 grams of fiber per serving, which gives you a sense that at least some of the nutrition is preserved in the process.
Okay, so what do you put on your waffles?
What you do is you take, frozen wild blueberries, and you put them in in a pot to defrost, and then you can put some chocolate balsamic vinegar in there. And then when it gets nice and mushy, you can mush it up with a potato masher, and you just drizzle that berry deliciousness onto a good, salt-free, buckwheat waffle, and delicious.
Well, that sounds amazing. I have to go try that. When you were saying that, it made me think, oh, what salad dressing do you like the best?
Oh, so I have a recipe on how not to die for my favorite salad dressing. In fact, I still use it to this day. Have some in the fridge left over. Though it's a few days old, I should use it up. And it's like a kind of a what's that? Trying to think what kind of salad I'm thinking of. The one with the anchovies and something. What's that kind of salad?
Caesar.
Oh yeah,
Caesar
Caesar.
salad.
It's kind of a Caesar salad dressing, but it's got like mustard and lemon juice and miso, and just look it up in the How Not to Die, not in the How Not to Die cookbook, but actually in the original How Not to Die text as a recipe for my favorite dressing. There's all sorts of cool, creamy, wonderful dressings you can make, but that's my favorite.
Okay. What about pure stevia?
Yeah, so stevia should be harmless at kind of moderate doses. But if you actually use stevia to sweeten everything, particularly beverages, which require a lot of sweetener, stevia sweetened beverage, I have a video talking about how many servings would be too much. But there's compounds which certain bacteria in our gut can turn into things that we don't want too much of in our body. But in moderate doses, stevia should be considered harmless.
Okay. And a question, do we need to worry about the number of grams of carb we take in?
No, we should. The concern is not so much the quantity as the quality. Where are they coming from? So it's like saying, it's not so much how much fat are you eating, but where is that fat coming from? And so, it's like carbohydrates. You can get carbohydrates from jelly beans or kidney beans, or, you can get it from, cotton candy, or you can get it from, sweet potatoes. I mean, it's just like the most important things, we want to get all of our macronutrients, our protein, carbs, and fat, as much as possible from whole, unprocessed plant foods. So, the healthiest carbohydrates are like fruits and starchy vegetables. Healthiest sources of proteins are legumes. Healthiest source of fats are nuts, seeds, avocados, nut and seed butters.
Okay, so someone who has type 2 diabetes, all their type 2 diabetes lives, they've been told stay away from carbs. Carbs are bad. It's really hard for them to accept that they can eat carbs. Do you have a way of selling that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's because the concern is on the symptom. So high blood sugars is a symptom of diabetes. So you're treating the symptom rather than the cause. The cause of diabetes, type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, is what's called insulin resistance. It's not that you're eating too much carbs, it's that your body is resistant to the effects of the blood sugar lowering hormone insulin within your body. And the way we improve our insulin sensitivity, and in fact can reverse type 2 diabetes, is by decreasing our intake of saturated fat in the context of excess calories. That's what causes insulin resistance in our muscles and liver, prevents insulin from working normally. So it's not the carbs themselves, it's the fact that our bodies are kind of intolerant to carbs. So let's treat the cause by getting rid of that intolerance, and then eat all the carbs you want from healthy sources without causing excess sugar in your blood. In fact, some of the original, like there's the oatmeal cure. Before we had insulin, we had the called oatmeal cure, where they just put people on oatmeal diets. which are basically, right, it's the massive amounts of carbs, but was able to keep people's insulin sensitivity high enough that we could prolong their lives. So yeah, treat the cause, and with the goal of reversing diabetes into remission, where you're eating a regular diet with no blood sugar lowering medications with normal blood sugars.
Okay.
So I have his book out here, and he talks about washing vegetables with salt water.
Oh,
Recommendation.
so Linda pulled out your book and she said you made a recommendation of washing vegetables with salt water. Is that still true?
So that was the video I talked about in terms of reducing pesticide residues. The concern, though, with the 10% salt solution is that sodium would remain on the produce. So as long as you rinse after the salt, dipping in the salt solution, you rinse really well to make sure you're not getting any excess salt in your diet, then that's fine. That would reduce the pesticide residues.
Okay. Thank
but
you.
if going through that extra step would overall decrease your intake of fruits and vegetables, don't do it.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about his new book?
Do you want to talk about your new book? Yeah.
New book! Woohoo! How Not to Age on Longevity is coming out December 5th. I'm super excited for everyone to read it. It's available for pre-order now, and all proceeds I receive from all my books all goes directly to charity.
I think that's awesome. I can't wait for that new book. And I just saw on one of your daily links, you had a little clip about the book too, right? You have a little trailer.
No, in fact, October 6th, I'm doing a presentation, a live webinar presentation on based on the book.
Right.
And so if you sign up at nutritionfacts.org to our free email newsletter, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for that. And yeah, I'm really excited for everyone to see it.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have time for one more question? We have 2 more minutes. What about bread? Whole wheat bread, sourdough bread? What's the best?
The best is, certainly whole grain is better. And ideally would actually have some whole groats in there. So something like rye bread, where actually has some rye berries in it, would probably be the best bread overall.
Okay. I love your groat meal recipe.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Oh, yeah. The groatnola or the bro?
Oh, the groatnola.
Groatnola. Yeah.
Groatnola,
No,
yeah.
I love. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, any other questions? 1 minute.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Greger. It's been a real pleasure having you.
Keep up the good work.
We really appreciate all your work you do.
Coming back.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.